Tim Riggs. I'm the audio and video supervisor.
And I'm Haley Wolf. I'm the sound department head.
Welcome to part of our sound shop. This is just sort of somewhere where we keep the items that we build all of the sound system out of. So basically, when you think of a sound system, you see the speakers and you might see the big mixing console that sits up at front of house. However, to make all of that work, everything needs a connection of some type to either get power or signal. So all of the cable you see will end up getting packed into little racks and packed full of equipment and put together and make sure that it all works. And there are shops in New York where we go to build some of the bigger shows that you can pull anything you could ever imagine sound-wise. And so you walk in and it's like a big puzzle piece. Like somebody dumps out all of the pieces and you have to put it all together and make sound happen. I am originally from Orem, Utah, which is a suburb of Salt Lake City. I am the son of a theater teacher and a second grade teacher. So my mother was the theater teacher, and she got me into theater, of course, when I was about this big. So I was doomed from the start and started doing theater in junior high school. I wanted to be an actor, of course, as everybody does. And in junior high school, the teacher ran into a situation where the person that was going to run sound for her couldn't do it anymore or didn't do it anymore. And she said, I need a sound person. And I raised my hand and started doing it. After high school, I went to college in Ogden, Utah, a little state school, nothing fancy. I went there and got a theater scholarship and studied there until I got my first professional touring job. I took that job in 2008, and I was on tour until 2016. Did a lot of Broadway tours, some other like concert tours. And then after that, I decided that the next logical step for me was New York. So in 2016, I moved to New York, started mixing on Broadway, did 4 Broadway shows and various other tours and off-Broadway shows. And I was there until last year, and my wife and I decided that we wanted a change of pace and heard that this job was open. So I landed in San Diego, and I've never looked back. Here at La Jolla Playhouse, my title is the Sound and Video Supervisor. So my job is basically to be the liaison between the La Jolla Playhouse and the guest designer for each show. Each show has its own designer. The director will usually pick that person depending on who they've worked with or the kind of style of show. They will choose the designer that they want to kind of inform the soundscape of their show or the general way that it sounds. So my job at the La Jolla Playhouse is to be the liaison between the sound designer and the production department. You can think of it like a head and an arm, if you will. And my job would be the shoulder. So Haley and the crew that actually do all of the hands-on work, you can consider them like the arm or the hand. And the designer, you could consider the brains of the operation. They have the vision. They know exactly what they want. And my job is to see that in a theoretical sense and help the crew turn that into a real thing. The way that we do that is mostly with paperwork. Lots and lots of paperwork. So Haley talked a little bit about how designers design in QLab and the way that they create sort of the artistic. There's also another element of design which is very, very practical. And that is any of these sort of architectural looking drawings. These are what I get from a designer. These are from an old Broadway show that I did. These are the kind of paperwork that I will get from a designer. And I would describe these as, ideal. The designer puts a little box where they want each speaker. And my job is to say, okay, we can do this or we can't do this. I can say, oh, this actually is not any sort of structural piece of anything, so you can't hang speakers here. So my job is to find the next best alternative for them and present that to the designer so that they can decide what they want to do. This is an example of a speaker plot in the house of a theater. That is the place where all the people sit. The audience is called the house. Each one of these green things is a speaker. So here, in this show, we had over 75 speakers in the house alone, and it was for a straight play. No music, no anything, just people talking and 75 speakers, plus an additional 20 some odd speakers on stage. This is an example of a schematic type of drawing. This particular one lays out how your front of house mixing console, which is where the person sits up at front of house with all the fancy blinking lights and the faders. And this is kind of the brain of any sound system. The brain and the heart of any sound system is the mixing console. So this schematic just shows you a basic overview of how the signal flow works. Signal flow is what we call the process of sound from the time that an actor or an instrument makes the physical sound to the time when the audience hears it through their physical ear. So anything that happens in the time between those two things is called the signal flow. So sound will come into a console through a microphone or a playback of some kind. The console will tell that sound how much and where to go. And the person sitting at the console has various ways of making that happen. Okay, so we already talked a little bit about a schematic and how you get the paperwork from the designer. So that lays out your theoretical idea, right? The next person that kind of steps in is called the A1 or audio head, also sometimes called the mixer. This person is the person that sits at the console every night, mixes the show. They're also in charge of the day-to-day operation of the show. So making sure microphones are cleaned, making sure microphones sound good, look good, feel good. And I say that because actors will generally wear a mic pack and a microphone. Now, these don't always look like this, and they don't always have the same color. We color each microphone to match any person's skin tone or their hair color, or if they're if they're playing the genie in Aladdin, we would paint it blue, and that would be their microphone. So this little thing right here is a full microphone. That sounds every bit as good as any microphone you've ever heard, except it's the size of my finger. You can kind of see how small that is. And what we'll do is, with an actor, we usually try and go through their hair, and it can live somewhere like this. Or a lot of times you go on glasses, or you can come up here. Any number of places that these microphones hide. So that's why I say you make sure that the microphones are clean and comfortable for the actors. Because if they're uncomfortable, they can't do their performance on stage, and everybody suffers. Okay, so this is an example of my script. I like to color code, and I have my own little code built into everything here. You see everything in yellow is a scene change. So that tells me immediately that this is going to be a button I push on the console that will advance my scenes. You can use it to help you mix different things. You can use it to turn actors' microphones on and off. Any number of things can happen with these scene changes. I have anything in blue is a sound effect. Anything with a blue and a red outline is a sound effect that I get a cue light for from the stage manager who's in charge of everything. They'll flip on a little light, and that tells me to stand by. And then when they turn the light off, that tells me to go with the cue. So you can see right here, this is sound cue 40, boys arrive. Now, if we know on stage, I'm not going to see the boys arrive because I'm sitting in the house or the audience. So I see exactly what the audience sees. So I can't tell when somebody's about to walk on stage. But the stage manager does know this. So what she will do, or he will do, is flip on a light that comes on out at the sound console, and that tells me something is about to happen. And I have to follow along in my script to know what is going to happen, but she's telling me something's going to happen. Flips on the light, and then when the light goes off, I take a sound cue. So that's something that would need a stage manager would give you that cue if it's something that you cannot see, if it's something that needs to be timed maybe with lighting or a piece of choreography, something that needs to happen right at an exact moment. There's another kind of sound cue here, and this is a visual sound cue. So here is outlined in blue. I know it's a sound, but here above it is a note that says visual. So I know I'm looking, and I know I'm looking in the boot room. It's unimportant. The boot room is just show specific. But this is a type of sound cue that I would actually watch the actor, and I'm trying to make a sound that represents whatever they are doing on stage. In this case, it happens to be a door opening and closing. So I'm watching the actor open the door, and I'm watching the actor shut the door. In addition to that, I put different notes in here. So these notes tell me mix notes. This -20 fade up to -10. That just tells me where my finger wants to be on that slider. Okay, so when I see a note here that says start at -20 and go to -10, there are little hash marks on every console. Every sound console has these little hash marks, and they go by subtractions. So this 0, when you say 0 on a sound console, that actually means all the way. So we count up to 0 from usually 99. So a -20, when I see that note that says I need to have that microphone up to -20, boom, I know that is right where that starts. So that starts off pretty quiet. In the middle of her singing this little part, I fade her up to -10. And that is because she starts singing off stage and walks on while she's singing. So that sort of helps the sound system mimic what the actor is doing on stage. I wanted to talk a little bit about why I like doing sound so much. I have always viewed the job of a sound person or anybody on the sound team because it really does take everybody, whether you're the person sitting up there mixing, whether you're the person on stage helping an actor get ready, whether you're a person that just helped put the show into the theater, it really does take everybody. And if one little thing isn't there, or if one person isn't able to do the task, then that's where the team comes in, and everybody can help rally around that person. And we all have different skills. We all have different things that we're good at or not good at. But so what I really love about working in sound is that team aspect is very, very strong. Because sound is immediate. As soon as it happens, it's gone. You can't capture it. You can't hold on to it. So sound can tend to be pretty frantic. So whoever you work with is very important. It's your interpersonal relationships are very important. As with anything. But that is partly what I love about sound. The other thing that I love about it is the subtlety. So much of sound can feel, especially once you start getting into the larger shows, it's sort of counterintuitive. The larger shows have a lot more subtlety to them. And sometimes as a sound person or even an audience member, you think like, I'm not hearing any difference. I don't know what's happening. So much of it is subconscious for the audience and the actors as well. So much of what goes on, we don't actually hear. You know, if you take a walk outside, do you hear all of the birds chirping? Do you hear the cars driving by? Do you hear the kids playing basketball next door? Do you hear the airplanes flying over? All of those things are happening. We don't always hear them though. A sound designer's job, as well as a sound engineer or anybody on the sound team, is really to focus in on those things that can be so subtle in real life and try to add a little bit of magic to them. A little bit of theater magic, a little bit of sparkle, some pixie dust, if you will, something. We just try and polish a little bit of that off, and that is what I love about theater, or about doing sound for theater. And I also, the sound team kind of gets to act as a translator in a way. If you're in a very big theater, nobody will know anything that's happening if there's not sound. You won't be able to hear it. So you literally are translating what's going on stage so that the audience can hear and understand. And that really is the primary purpose, is for the audience to be able to hear and understand. And then additionally, if you can give them some feelings, that's all the better. And that's what I love about it. Okay, I wanted to give you a little more clarification on what a mixer is. I talk about this position of a mixer, somebody that mixes the show. When we do a show, you have any number of microphones coming into the console, and that's a lot of sound information. And, you know, if we were to just turn all those microphones on, you would hear something that sounds a lot like this. So there's something going on stage right now, but we have no idea what it is. So you go from this, where you can't understand anything that's going on, to one person. Just like that. One person talking on stage, and now the next person is talking. So we just whittle all that information down to exactly what the audience wants to hear. So you're not bombarded with that all night long. So you've got people backstage that aren't getting reception on their microphone, so you hear popping and all of that. So that's what we do.